Viwe.
I'm Lubika Rawood. For more information on the work that we do and how you can help us to help others, please visit our website www.secondchances.org.za.
In Junior Achievement South Africa, its focus is really to expose youngsters within high school and out of school to entrepreneurial thinking, and ours is focused at high school from grade 10 to 12.
I'm very big on youth empowerment and making a difference and touching lives and impacting the lives of our young people. That's practically what I do with my foundation as well, and ever since I was crowned as Miss SA.
The goal of the magazine is to basically share information that will be able to assist small business owners.
You're listening to The Social Show with Viwe
And Lubika Rawood, live on brandlive.co.za.
Good morning, everybody, and you are tuned into The Social Show as per usual every morning at 9:30, and you are speaking to Viwe. And crazy enough, guys, today's Valentine's Day. The sun is out and there are no flowers on my table, so I'm feeling a little bit down. But anyway, we're going to start off the day with the news and then with our interview a little bit later. So let's go. Cape Classics, a New York-based wine importer, has established the Indaba Education Fund, a fully accredited 501c3 organization which provides early childhood teacher training, learning materials, and educational infrastructure to young at-risk children living in South African winelands. A portion of all global sales of the Cape Classics Indaba wines brand goes towards realizing this mission, but the majority of support is anticipated to be through fundraising and private donations. The IEF has been established to dramatically improve educational opportunities for the most vulnerable children living in South African winelands by training and certifying teachers to world-class Montessori standards. CEO and co-founder of Cape Classics, Andre Scheer, says they want to offer as many children as they possibly can so they can realize their dreams and make a better life for themselves and their families. In other news, SOSA Investments recently launched its first project, Light Complain, with the aim, of donating 50,000 solar-powered lanterns to underprivileged grade 3 learners to replace their current use of kerosene lamps. Indoor air pollution created mostly by the use of kerosene lamps results in 3.3 annual human deaths, which is a greater toll than that of HIV and AIDS and malaria combined. Indoor air pollution, each solar puff, a low-cost expandable solar-powered lamp will be distributed at the start of each school year as part of the students' school packs. And in other news, Project Light is the first of many sustainable solutions that SOSA Investments, 5 South African students, entrepreneurs, are set to initiate as part of their goal of creating real change in the lives of underprivileged South Africans. And these innovators hope to create a South Africa and an Africa at large that does not rely on fossil fuels and that no longer turns a blind eye on indoor air pollution and the lack of safe light sources in poorer communities. Thousands of prospective university students' funding applications have been turned down by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, for the year 2017. The NSFAS said on Thursday that 9,976 had been turned down because they did not meet its eligibility criteria. The unsuccessful applicants now have to lodge appeals motivating why they should be funded. However, funding applications are closed. Now, the NSFAS is the main source of funding for needy students, and it received 233,000 applications at the end of 2016, from which it has made offers to only 175 students. Funding has been prioritized for the first year of students, and returning students were part of the scheme in 2016 and satisfied 50% of the module pass requirement for 2016 academic year and signed the agreement forms in 2016. Now, NSFAS spokesperson Kagisho Mabolo said maximum funding per student was 76,000, but costs for each student would be submitted by universities in 2017. And that's our news wrap up for the day.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Well, if you haven't gotten your V-Day gifts or flowers, fret not, because today we have someone who I think will give you more important information about today and the kind of things that people might get up to, but more importantly, information that will aid you in your life, that will make you a more safe human being in South Africa. And today we are speaking to Deborah Ewing, who's all the way in Durban. Good day, Deborah.
Hi, Viwe. How are you?
I am very well.
Listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Deborah is the Research and Regional Programming Coordinator for Sexual and Reproductive Rights at the AIDS Foundation. So, Deborah, can you just tell us a little bit more about the work that you do within the AIDS Foundation, please?
Surely. Thanks, Viwe. The AIDS Foundation was the first registered HIV/AIDS organization in South Africa way back in 1988.
Yes.
And we have a sexual and reproductive health rights program, which looks at the links between HIV and all the other areas of sexual and reproductive health and human rights. And we share knowledge, research, information, ideas with society organizations, NGOs, researchers, and policymakers, and bring people together to look at how can they pool their knowledge and work together, whether it's through advocacy and policy, to make sure that the policies, the promises that have been made around addressing HIV are actually put into practice.
Lovely. There's been quite a decline in the general awareness of HIV and AIDS in South Africa. And why do you think this is? And what are the repercussions in your opinion?
I think when you say, obviously we work in HIV every day.
Yes.
And I think there is still a high level of awareness and knowledge.
Okay.
But I think perhaps the issue is acting on that with the same urgency that we need to.
Agreed.
And that's both as individuals and as a country. So HIV and TB remain joint crises in South Africa, and they're also linked very strongly to gender-based violence.
Yes.
We're still getting around 280,000 new infections a year. And as individuals, we can to protect ourselves, to protect our loved ones, our families and friends, and our colleagues by knowing our status, by practicing safer sex. And there's a lot of talk about reducing the number of partners. And I think this is about being honest with ourselves and each other, that, some people do choose to have more than one partner. The question is, if you choose that for yourself, you don't have the right to choose it for me. Be honest. Let's be on each other. Let's be honest that we can take the steps we need to use condoms or to decide to find another partner who doesn't want lots of partners. So let's be honest about that so we can make the choice about what sort of relationships we want to have. And I think it's important when you talk about, awareness declining or, and I think the urgency declining, the things we need to do to protect ourselves against HIV are the same things we need to do to have healthy relationships, even if HIV exists. Treat each other with respect. Don't coerce or pressure any sex. Use condoms properly every time. Don't agree to sex in exchange for gifts or money. And don't demand sex because you want the dinner or the wine, Flowers on the desk on Valentine's Day are lovely. That's a romantic gesture. Let's understand that for what it is. We mustn't put a price on our own life or anyone else's life because of that. And I think the way girls and boys need to be understand issues of consent. What does it mean to be invited to be in a relationship or to consent to having sex and to be blunt. If I'm asleep or I'm drugged or I'm drunk or you've knocked me unconscious, I can't even consent to a cup of tea, let alone sex. To be socializing little children to that reality in appropriate ways, so that we can have more meaningful and loving relationships with each other.
I definitely agree with you, Deborah. What are the latest discoveries on the road to finding a cure for HIV and AIDS in South Africa? Do you think a lot of people know the actual, I know you spoke about consent, you spoke about honesty, but do people practically know what they need to do if they have been in a space where they didn't consent, or they were, forced into something, or anything could have happened to sort of prevent themselves from contracting the virus?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of work done around treatment and around treatment as prevention, parallel to the huge amounts of research that are being done to find a cure for HIV/AIDS. I think, if you've been exposed to HIV, you can get post-exposure prophylaxis. It's basically go to a clinic and you can say that you have been exposed and that you need, it's a short course of antiretroviral drugs to prevent you from developing HIV, from contracting HIV.
Yes.
So it's for people to know what services are available, but it's good to keep up with the, because then there are also opportunities for young researchers. If you're in matric or you're doing, a general course at university, or interested in going, and be aware of what's happening in the country. There's some very exciting developments, amazing work being done by organisations, research institutions in South Africa, including Caprisa. Be part of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the critical issue is about, protecting, preventing.
Yeah.
Because already antiretroviral treatment can, if it's taken correctly and consistently, keep the viral load down in your blood so it's undetectable. That means you're much less likely to be able to pass it on to somebody else, and you won't develop illnesses. If you're already HIV positive, that's a wonderful achievement, because it means that you and your partner and any children that you might decide to have can be, protected against developing HIV and AIDS. If you're negative, don't hand over that responsibility to doctors and scientists. Put yourself at risk, don't put others at risk.
Lovely. And what is the importance of maintaining a healthy sexual? I mean, it's obviously very important, and I know that you work within, sexual and reproductive health rights. But what is the overall state? What is it that we're missing? What is it that is not being done right within the more legal aspects of sexual and health reproductive rights? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think I touched on some of the things that we need to do as individuals,
yes,
and couples and families.
Yes.
Just to go back briefly to, needs to do more to be fixing the state of the public health system, and it's made a commitment to get everybody who is positive onto antiretroviral treatment. That's a big shift since last year, when the policy was that you had to have a CD4 count of 500. So you had to have, a level of the virus in your blood,
yes,
to qualify for treatment. That changed. It is a huge challenge to the system to get everybody else. There was about half the number of people who were on treatment, and we need to get another sort of 3.5 million on. So that's a big challenge. But the service, it's dysfunctional in many areas, in many ways.
Yeah.
And so people aren't getting the services that are provided for. So that requires a lot of advocacy, and it sometimes requires litigation.
Yeah.
Organizations like Section 27, who have a focus on legal rights and making sure that government delivers the services it's made and the budget commitments that it's made. But the other side of that, government is also responsible for making sure that children in schools get comprehensive sexuality education.
Yeah.
And that's a job for everybody. It's a job for parents. It's a job for brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles. And it's a job for the workplace and the universities. But if we get to schools, we can reach so many more children before they become sexually active. They're at risk. So that's an issue, and not there's a lot of stigma
I was about to say, stigma.
That particularly girls shouldn't be sexually active. Girls should save themselves. They should be virgins until they're married.
Definitely.
And messaging is around girls and making girls responsible, and we need to shift from that, and messaging to girls and to boys. To take joint responsibility.
Agreed. There's been quite a rise in how, now we're talking about stigma, and how people are treated at their workplaces and how people are treated at schools because of the stigma attached. There's obviously the stigma of girls not going to not being in charge of their sexuality, but there's also the stigma of when you have HIV and AIDS, this is how you're supposed to be treated. Is there anything that, any information or research that, or a legislative, anything that can help curb that a little bit more?
I think there's a variety of things. One is, there is still that levels of stigma are still significant in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it's not just stigma around HIV. There's stigma around teen pregnancy.
Yes.
There's stigma around sexuality
Yes.
and sexual orientation and gender identity.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of things. And part of that is that we need to have facts. We need to be acting on information and not acting on prejudice and rumor. And I think a lot of that requires good leadership. It requires you're a leader in your community or you're a leader in parliament. It means people saying the right thing. Demonstrating inclusion, not treating people who are suffering diseases or conditions that anybody could suffer from, or stigmatizing people just because of who they are. We have this history of the most terrible racism, and we're still finding now ways of alienating and each other.
I completely agree.
Part of it is education, and part of it is wherever we have opportunity to challenge stigma, let's do it. And wherever we have the opportunity to come into contact with people who are having different experiences, whether it's because they have a particular disability or because they're living with HIV or TB, to find the things that we have in common and to learn from each other about how we can protect our own health and rights and those of others.
Okay. Lastly, what is the AIDS Foundation planning to do in 2017, sort of differently to what you guys have been doing already, especially within your field?
Okay. I think, the AIDS Foundation has always tried to integrate work on HIV and AIDS with broader issues of sexual and reproductive health rights and community development, because obviously HIV isn't just a health challenge.
Yes.
It's about the way we live together. It's about access to services, all sorts of issues. So organizations that depend on funding, from whether it's from government or whether it's from donors inside or outside the country, we have to try and tailor that to what the priorities are of those particular donors. But over the years, AFSA has focused more and more on this holistic approach.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to extend that. So working at the community development level, creating issues like approaches to gender-based violence, understanding of linkages between health and well-being and mental health and issues of gender-based violence. We have huge issues of substance abuse. People abusing alcohol, which is related to risky sexual behavior.
Yes.
So AFSA isn't an organization that works on alcohol addiction, but through its community dialogues, its community development, it's just look, how can you strengthen community responses to those kinds of problems? And the other new thing is working regionally, because many, in Southern Africa, because we have common challenges, we have many cultural similarities, we have many similar challenges in terms of health budgets and living conditions. So reaching out to organizations that are working on these issues across the region and looking at how collectively demand more accountability from governments with promises on these issues.
Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of collaboration from the AIDS Foundation, which sounds really amazing. Thank you so much, Deborah, for your time. I think this has been very, very informative and really positive. And I think if anyone is listening, they kind of got the understanding and the gist of what it is that's happening at the AIDS Foundation, and also just how to really maintain, and be sexually and sexually. I'm losing the word, but to be an active agent in your own sexuality, whatever it is, and to be smart enough to be safe, to be safe and put yourself first. So thank you so much for your time, Deborah.
Anyway, may I give you a website address for people who want to know more?
Yes, please tell us.
Easy to remember. It's www.sexrightsafrica.net. So it's all one word, sexrightsafrica.net, and you will be able to find all sorts of information about everything to do with sexual and reproductive health. And you can join in conversations. You can blog. You can take part in discussions. You can download and upload.
That is
and get in touch with people around the region who are doing this kind of work.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Deborah, for your time.
Thank you, and have a great Valentine's Day.
You too. Have a beautiful one.
Bye then.
Bye. Okay, if you didn't know who that was, that is Deborah Ewing, who is all the way from Durban, who represents the AIDS Foundation. I thought it was very important that we speak a little bit about HIV and AIDS in South Africa. We don't speak about it enough. Like you said, the urgency around really acting on it has really decreased. And it's very important that on Valentine's Day and other days, every single day actually, it's not just a Valentine's Day issue, that we always sort of are in touch with what is out, what is the legislation that's out right now, what you can do to prevent yourself from getting the virus, and if you have the virus, how you can live with it in a way that is the best way possible and improve the quality of living that you have. And there's a lot of challenges that we have, within the HIV and AIDS community. There's a lot of and outside and within South Africa, in regard to HIV and AIDS. But the more we speak about it in a way that is intelligent and in a way that is informative and in a way that is, does not stem on stigma, on prejudice, the more work can be done, and the more we can integrate actively and include people who may have the virus. It's no longer a thing of othering and really differentiating yourself from people who have HIV and AIDS. We're all the same. We're all living in the same country, and we all deserve to be treated the same way. So if you know of anybody, and if you know of anybody who'd like to get a little bit more information, Deborah did tell you where to go to find more information about sexual and health and reproductive rights in South Africa. And I think we should be active agents in the way that we understand our sexualities, the way we understand our reproductive rights. There's a lot of things going on. You've got the gag situation with Trump. We've got so many situations where people are just misinformed and they don't even know what is exactly going on. So if you are in the HIV and AIDS space as a CSI head or an NGO head, this is some really, really amazing information for you to not only just throw money at a situation, but to actively engage as to how do we change perceptions, how do we change really bad opinions and concepts surrounding HIV and AIDS, and also how do we act more urgently so we can decrease the number of people who have the virus and people who might not know enough about it. We sort of give them that information to say, this is how you can protect yourself. And I love how, Deborah spoke about women and how they stigmatized in terms of not being able to speak up and say, look, I am sexually active and this is how I choose to be, and not to sort of close them off and make them, these passive agents to their own lives. Women have a voice. They have they can make the decisions that they want to make, and we just need to open that up so that we can have a safer and more transparent way of speaking. And the way that they can speak to their partners about sex, and how they can engage people about how their reproductive systems are and how they need to have that language, and that and I feel like the more we shield them, the more we act like they aren't willing participants, the more we have issues of lack of consent and rape. There's a lot of situations it can boil down to, but we need to make sure that our females and our girls have the language and have the capability and a given, not even given actually, just are made aware of their rights within sexual and reproductive issues. So that was a really great interview, and I hope you are sitting there with your loved one and you are informed right now, and you know where to go if you are experiencing any troubles, any drama, and if you didn't know anything about your sexual reproductive rights, as well as what the AIDS Foundation is doing. Now you know. And that's the wrap up for the show. Thank you so much for listening in, and I really hope you guys have a beautiful day ahead. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place.
The Social Show is the only show that gives you updated content on all things CSI.
The show will interrogate and report on the latest initiatives that are supported, developed and initiated by the public and private sector.
Hosted by myself, Viwe,
and me, Lebika Robert,
every week from 4 to 5 p.m. Hear it on brandlive.co.za.
See it on social-tv.co.za.
brandlive.co.za, harnessing the power of talk radio.